The Hard Count is presented by BetMGM. As y'all know by now, we've teamed up with BetMGM this college football season. We'll be using their lines to make all our picks, and we'll have special offers for all of you each week. Now, when you join BetMGM, you get access to a variety of parlay selection features like same-game parlays, live betting options, and more. If you haven't signed up yet for BetMGM, use bonus code HARDCOUNT, and you'll get up to $1,500 first bet offer on your first wager with BetMGM. Here's how that works. 1, download the BetMGM app and sign up using bonus code HARDCOUNT. 2, deposit at least $10 and place your first wager on any game. Step 3, you'll receive up to $1,500 in bonus bets if your bet loses. Just make sure you use bonus code HARDCOUNT when you sign up. Let's make this college football season 1 for the books. Let's make it legendary. Let's get to the show. Welcome into the Hard Count, the college football show for people that know their head coach is being honest, but they're not being brutally honest. That's what we're here for. Presented by BetMGM. Got a couple of coach translators for you today. Translating Mike Elko, translating Hugh Freeze, translating Kalen DeBoer. Again, they're not being dishonest, but I think in our position, with us not being paid millions of dollars to coach those respective football teams, we're able to be a touch more honest than they're actually being. All right, so that is back. If you tuned in during the offseason, we did that a little bit throughout the course of that offseason, but we got a lot more to unpack. I want to talk about some teams that might be on the bubble that have college football playoff inspirations. We'll unpack that. Also, Steve Sarkisian was asked more or less if he was willing to give up play calling, and he gave a pretty blunt answer, and I think his answer was honest. We'll have to translate that one, and we'll give you our thoughts on that a little bit later. But before we do that, I want us to all get aligned here. This coaching carousel has already started turning. There's a couple of other variables, a couple other dominoes that could end up falling that would make this thing even more crazy. I want to make sure that we are all on the same page. This coaching carousel is going to have a ripple effect of making a crazy transfer portal cycle, which is going to cause next college football season to be absolute chaos. JD, are you looking past this college football season? We would never do that. We would never look past this college football season. But in the context of this college football season, there's a couple of jobs that are worth keeping an eye on when it comes to if they become open. LSU, I think it's fair to say that that will become more and more of a discussion point with that job potentially being vacant, or LSU maybe making a move if Brian Kelly and co. don't finish the season in a strong fashion. We've talked a lot about Auburn already. Hugh Freeze is talking about how it'd be great to get a vote of confidence from his AD, and I don't blame him for saying that, but the fact that's a discussion point, that job is one to keep an eye on. The Florida job's already open. The Penn State job's already open. I think Florida State, just between you and I, will eventually be open here, whether it's before the end of the season or not, relative to what Florida State is saying. So you're saying, JD, there's a bunch of big jobs becoming available, so what? So what that means is those potential jobs that either are going to be open or the jobs that are already open, Florida being the most notable one that's open right now, those are the kind of jobs that you hire a sitting coach from another place from. Like Florida, I would be wildly surprised if they didn't hire somebody that's currently a head coach at a Power 4 school. I don't think you're getting Nick Saban off the College Game Day desk. I don't think Urban Meyer's leaving Fox. So you're probably hiring somebody that already has a pretty good job. So when you hire them away from Ole Miss, from Missouri, from fill in the blank with any other prospective candidate, Notre Dame, maybe you take Marcus Freeman from there, I think that'd be a pretty big swing. But if you could make contact there, more power to you. When you take that head coach out of their respective program, they're able to get the Florida job because they did a good job at their former place. And the place they were at was able to be successful because they had talented rosters. So when that happens, when you take Eli Drinkwitz from Missouri, or you take a Lane Kiffin from Ole Miss, guess what? The portal has a pretty proven track record. When a head coach leaves a place, the portal blows that thing up when it comes to the roster. So those highly talented rosters at an Ole Miss, at a Notre Dame, at a Missouri, if when potentially one of those jobs becomes a place they hire from, not stealing so much as hiring, there's a lot of talent that will become scattered across the college football world. And so I have two thoughts on this. One, some of that high-end talent, I think we could see end up at another pretty talented roster. They don't follow their head coach maybe. They end up somewhere else. And when that happens, are they the missing piece? Kind of like when Caleb Downs left Alabama and went to Ohio State. Ohio State made a couple of key portal moves that offseason. Caleb Downs, I think, being arguably the most impactful that allowed them to go be a national champion. Do we see some of those guys from Florida end up somewhere else where, I don't know, maybe they're the missing piece for fill in the blank for the school that you want to talk about there. That's maybe so close, but it just takes a Caleb Downs caliber player, it takes a Quinshon Judkins, takes a Will Howard, takes a whoever you want to fill in the blank with, and they end up being the difference for you down the stretch for next season. I think that's possible. Other thought here, how does the portal quarterback market look when we get to the transfer portal after this coaching carousel situation kind of settles down? Because we've seen the impact a quarterback can make on a team from one season without him to the next season when you get him. Look at Oklahoma right now. Yes, Ben Arbuckle's a dog. Yes, Brent Venables calling the defense is phenomenal, but like John Mateer is why Oklahoma is who they are right now, in my estimation. Miami last year with Cam Ward. Miami this year with Carson Beck. Miami's in a very different place if they don't go to the portal and get Carson Beck. Say what you want about the Louisville game. He has been a game changer for them. Not knocking Emory Williams, but it's a different world if Carson Beck's not spitting the pill for you out there. So the portal quarterback market, if Missouri loses Drinkwitz, Bo Prabula all of a sudden is back on the market. DJ Lagway has already come out and said, I'm a Florida Gator, man. Okay. I don't think he's being dishonest, but I also think that that's something that we should talk about as we get closer and closer to the transfer portal. Not just DJ Lagway, but Florida players in general. How many guys are going to potentially look somewhere else? Austin Simmons, if Lane Kiffin leaves, I don't know. What happens there? Deuce Knight, if Hugh Freeze isn't the head coach at Auburn. 5-star quarterback right there. A lot of people would like to have him on their roster. So the portal quarterback market in and of itself could end up being a little bit more juicy than what we saw even last season. And so that in itself could change the entire complexion of what next year looks like. So there's a lot of different chaos points that I'm hitting on here, from coaches leaving to rosters having massive portal impact to quarterbacks being different places. And you say all that and you hear yourself say all that. And if you're listening to this show, you're hearing me say, okay, great, you're telling me there's chaos, JD. So what? So what that means is when we're sitting here in a few months, and it hurts my heart to say this, in a few months when the college football season is over and we're looking down the barrel of media days and spring practice and all those things, I think we will have on deck at least the most chaotic college football season that maybe we've ever had, because the portal is already doing its thing. Look at what Indiana is. Look at what Texas Tech is. Look at what Vanderbilt is, going out and getting Diego Pavia. The portal is very clearly having an impact on how we're viewing college football right now and the rankings we have in college football right now, with some of those logos that we don't usually see in the top 25, sitting in the top 25. But when you have these jobs potentially flipping rosters and head coaches going other places, that just pours gasoline on the fire that is modern college football right now, with all those different devices I just spoke to, with NIL, the portal, and all those things alike. So we'll be sitting there at media days here in next summer, and we'll be saying, I don't know who's going to win the SEC. Florida all of a sudden has a win total of over 9.5. Yeah, I don't know about the Big Ten, man. Penn State, they just hired fill-in-the-blank head coach. He brought a bunch of fill-in-the-blank players with him, and maybe they're one of those teams that can actually challenge for real this time. Not like how they've challenged the last couple of years, and we're talking about James Franklin and Penn State. Like, we're not having that same discussion. We're looking down the barrel of who they have at quarterback and how much more dynamic they are offensively and all those things, and we're like, okay, maybe this is the year that Penn State challenges. Maybe they can dethrone an Ohio State or an Oregon. So hold on tight, buckle up. Make sure that you've taken your caffeine pills and drinking your coffee, because it's going to be a wild offseason. It's going to be a wild carousel. It already is. But if a couple other dominoes here gets to falling, it's going to completely break loose, and that portal will follow suit. And the college football season next year, not looking past this year, but what happens this year, what it means for next year, it'll be anarchy, absolute anarchy. But as always, we'll talk about all of it, so make sure you're subscribed. College football year-round. Appreciate y'all being dialed in. Hey, I talked about next season there for a little bit, and I didn't mean to do that at the expense of this season. So let's go back to this season overall. Couple of teams now that are looking to finish October strong, and right now have their college football playoff hopes very much so intact, but kind of on the bubble in some respects here. I want to go through a couple of these teams and just kind of unpack their playoff path and maybe what they need to do to get to the college football playoff. Let's start with Oklahoma. JD, Oklahoma's got one loss. They're on the bubble. They're on the bubble by nature of what their schedule is, because, yes, Oklahoma has one loss, but they still got to play Ole Miss, still got to go to Tennessee, got to go to Alabama, Missouri, and LSU. That is the gauntlet that Oklahoma has in front of them. That is what they signed up for when they went to the SEC. So more power to you, Oklahoma. But here's the thing with Oklahoma. Here's why I have a lot of confidence in them and why I just can't wait to see what they do down the stretch. Do we realize how close they truly are? Like, I think after Red River, A lot of the excitement around how good John Mateer is sort of got dialed back a little bit. I think a lot of people sold their Sooner stock and said, okay, yes, we love John Mateer, but like if you're going to lose to that Texas team, I don't know if I can get behind you when you're going to play at Tennessee and at Bama in that 2-game stretch. And I don't think that's irresponsible, but I also think we're not paying enough attention to what Oklahoma is if they all of a sudden develop a run game. And that's harder to do than it is, to go into the season with. Like Cato made a great point a couple of weeks ago. I don't know if you learn to run the football during the season, but Oklahoma ran for over 100 yards with Torrey Blaylock against South Carolina. How real is that? Because if it's even a little bit real and they have a run game that maybe not leaning on, but they can count on to some respects, you get 3rd and 2 and you feel like you can actually hand the football to someone not named John Mateer. Oklahoma has everything else around them to go make a real run at this thing. Because John Mateer, I still believe, is one of the best quarterbacks in college football. He's only going to get healthier. I believe in the weapons. Deion Burks, quietly one of the better receivers in the SEC. Jaron Kanik has a case to be one of the best tight ends in college football right now. That defense is so stupid. They're number 1 in America when it comes to sack rate. They're number 1 in America when it comes to first downs allowed. That defense is going to keep them in every single game. So if you give me that defense, plus a multidimensional offense, plus with that psychopathic quarterback that is John Mateer, who's counting out Oklahoma? And I'm not saying they win every game and they get there as an 11-1 football team, but, legit, if they beat Ole Miss, you just got to split the games at Tennessee and at Alabama. Feel a lot better about Missouri and LSU if you can split Tennessee and Alabama on the road. Think about it this way. Which of these games is Oklahoma not going to be favored in? Already favored against Ole Miss. Okay, great. If you beat Ole Miss, I think you'll go to Tennessee as a very, very slight favorite. I could see that being a pick'em. I could see it being Tennessee minus 2.5. I could see it being Oklahoma minus 2.5, y'all, which is kind of how I'd lean. Then if you beat Tennessee, let's just say that you drop the game against Bama. I think Bama is going to be a game where you're not favored. It's in Tuscaloosa. Bama looks like a freaking wagon right now. Okay, let that be what it is. I think you're favored against Missouri at home. I don't know what's going on with LSU the last week of the college football season, but they got to go to Norman. It's all right there for Oklahoma. So if they can develop a run game and have something to work with on offense that maximizes the passing game, because teams have to honor the run game even more without John Mateer being the only rushing threat for you, I think you're in a really good spot. I think you're in a really, really good spot. Going back to that defense, if you give them a lead to work with, how many of these games are you going to lose? Because I understand that Bama's great offensively. I think Tennessee's elite offensively as well. But, if you're having to chase points with that defense on the other side, it's not a great way to live. So Oklahoma, they're on the bubble by nature of their schedule, but if they can have something to depend on a little bit, not lean on, but depend on, count on, all those things, just have another answer offensively, Oklahoma has a very legitimate chance to be in the college football playoff. And you get him in the door with John Mateer and co., all bets are off. That's all I'm saying. If you get them hot at the right time with that quarterback, all bets are off, especially with how that defense is rolling. So Oklahoma, a bubble team, without a question, and wouldn't be surprised if they found their way in. Notre Dame, they're a bubble team because they have 2 losses. But you look at their college football playoff outlook, man, I think they'll get in with 2 losses if they finish with that being the only way they're looking heading into the college football playoff. If they're 10-2, I don't think Notre Dame's getting left out. And people will shout and scream and cry and say that's brand bias. People just want to see the Notre Dame logo in the playoff, and they just want to see television ratings get boosted. And, I hear that, but here's what it really is. It's just common sense. You got the game against Boston College at their place, play Navy, at Pitt, Syracuse, at Stanford. Those are all games that you'd like to think you could, maybe should win if you're Notre Dame. Think you'll be favored in every single game. Right now, the AP poll has Notre Dame at 12. We'll see what the college football playoff rankings say about Notre Dame. I'd be shocked if we see them outside the top 15, just so we're aligned here. In 2 weeks, when they announce those rankings, Notre Dame, I think, will be on the fringe of the top 12 or in the top 12. Notre Dame winning out, they're not going to drop. You say, well, JD, they don't play in a conference title game. You don't get that last data point. Is that going to hurt them? I don't think so. And I think this whole conference title game discussion is fair to have. I don't think it's irresponsible to say out loud that them not having a conference title game could hurt them. But them being 10-2 with losses to what I believe will be 2 other college football playoff teams, potentially a top 5 team in A&M, and Miami I think will be the ACC champ. If those are your only 2 losses by a combined total of 4 points, who else has a better 2-loss resume than you? I mean, maybe you say Tennessee, But even then, like if they end up being 10-2 and their losses are to Bama and Georgia, your margin of loss is a lot smaller. And I can't imagine this doesn't factor into the minds of a human being that's on that college football playoff committee. We say that we try not to factor in when you lose and how it impacts your resume, but like it's still people in that room at the end of the day making decisions, y'all. I think it's going to be a lot easier to remember teams that have lost in the month of November and factor that in more heavily than Notre Dame reeling off 10 in a row and saying, oh, well, they haven't lost since their second game of the season. And even that was like the last play to a very prestigious A&M logo, A&M team that we're looking at here in the context of this playoff. So, yes, I'm putting a little bit of weight into how those losses age, but I don't think that we're going too far into conspiracy territory by saying A&M is going to be pretty strong here the rest of the way and Miami the same deal. Is Notre Dame with 2 losses really in a much worse position than like a 2-loss Big Ten team that misses their Big Ten title game or a 2-loss SEC team that misses their conference title game? And you say, well, JD, they don't have the wins that those teams would have. And I don't think that's wrong, but I also don't think the losses with the nature of what Notre Dame's working with will keep them out. So a lot of this is the way that it stacks up for them when it comes to how they're perceived in the rankings and those first rankings from the playoff, and I get all that. But to me, I don't think they're going to lose another game because of the tangible stuff that we've talked about, but also just the personality of this team right now. Like I said it after the USC game. I picked them to lose to USC because I wasn't sure how they would handle being under the heavy bar against a team that could beat them for the first time since A&M. Like, I don't care that you beat up on Boise State and NC State. I'm glad you did that, but, like, honestly, I want to see what you are when you have to flip the switch again and play somebody that is maybe not of an equal caliber talent-wise, but equal enough to where you could lose that football game. And Notre Dame showed up, had the switch flipped, found their identity offensively, and found the rhythm with Jeremiah Love getting him touches. CJ Carr, not his best day at the office, but he's looked poised so far this year since those games. Like, I don't have any reservations about Notre Dame going 10-2 at this point. And I don't think right now I have reservations either about Notre Dame being a 10-2 team getting left out. So we'll see how this whole thing shakes out. But Notre Dame, they go 10-2, mark my words, they will be in the college football playoff. So bubble team by nature of 2 losses, but not a bubble team in the sense that they control their own destiny. Notre Dame will be in there. Michigan, they have 2 losses, and they also control their own destiny, but they're interesting to talk about right now because I think a 10-2 Michigan also gets in the college football playoff. And it's all teed up for them right now to be 9-2, welcoming Ohio State to Ann Arbor with a college football playoff spot on the line for the Wolverines. And if we told you that was going to be the case back in August, you would have taken that in a heartbeat if you were a Wolverine fan, right? You're saying, hey, we beat Ohio State every single year. Just bring them to our place, lock that gate. Bryce Underwood at that point's playing his 12th college football game. Let's roll. We'll take that all day, every day. Okay, well, right now, it looks like you're going to get that. At Michigan State, you're a 2-touchdown favorite. Purdue, at Northwestern, at Maryland. That's the path to playing Ohio State with 9 wins. That's the path. And I think what this is going to test here for us when we talk about Michigan, it's going to test 2 things. One is that culture and maturity card that has made Michigan the last couple of years under Harbaugh and going into last year when they finished the year the way they did, beating Ohio State, beating Bama. Is that still intact? Like it needs to be intact to go be a college football playoff team. Because say what you want about the shortcomings of the beginning of the Jim Harbaugh era in Michigan, that team, for the most part, before he left, they were beating who they were supposed to beat. And that's what it's going to take for Michigan here. Can you beat who you're supposed to be? Are you mature enough to not get your head in the Twitter mentions and not get into the rankings of where you're going to end up when you play Ohio State? Like, can you just take every game for what it is, hit the reset button, be a professional about yourself, be mature enough to handle the game at Northwestern, where it's going to be probably a library sort of vibe out there, not a lot of voice, not a lot of excitement for you when you're playing them. Can you play them the same way that you played against Washington last week? And same thing going to Maryland. When you're looking down at Ohio State the next week, when you know what that game could mean for you if you beat Maryland, can you not have the look-ahead energy about yourself? If you can do that, all bets are off with what Michigan can be. Second thing we're going to test here for Michigan is the offense able to evolve and continue to find their own sort of identity, for lack of a better term, to be able to be good enough when you play Ohio State. And what I mean by that is when we saw them play Washington, it looked like it totally clicked for them for the first time. And not they hadn't had good performances, but we saw for the first time Michigan football, the 2.0 version, that looked like a more refined version of what we were told we were going to get, if that makes sense. Like, Michigan ran the football. That's what you expected from them. That's what they told you they were going to be. Even when they got Bryce Underwood, we said, no. Like, old Michigan traits are still going to be there. But off of that, we saw a lot more creativity. Running end arounds, Donovan McCulley. Running some misdirection, fake reverse, throw the ball to the end zone for your tight end touchdown. Like, stuff like that where you're messing with the eyes of a defense and scheming explosives open. And explosives aren't all the time like a 30-yard pass downfield. Explosives could just be safety got his eyes in the backfield, tight end gets out in the back of the end zone, touchdown. That's an explosive. I don't care how many yards it's for when it comes to what Michigan's doing offensively. So with that being the rhythm they've found offensively, can you take that and build upon it here the rest of the way? Because when you play Ohio State, you got to have your quarterback and Bryce Underwood be a lot closer to what J.J. McCarthy was in those games than what you had last year. And I'm not knocking the win last year. You celebrate that till the cows come home. But, like, to be real, we've all seen that Ohio State defense, right? If you want to be a playoff team, you need Bryce Underwood to have a couple of special moments. Doesn't need to carry you. If he's carrying you, something has gone wrong for the Michigan run game. But you have to have something from him in that game to go win that game to get to the college football playoff. So maturity and evolution of the offense as they continue to become more and more savvy, unlock more parts of that, that's where Michigan becomes a team that can be in the college football playoff. Now, if you're thinking about maybe getting to that Ohio State game in Ann Arbor, you're like, man, JD, you're talking about this game being a potential playoff impact game for us, the game where we could punch our ticket to the college football playoff as a Michigan fan. Best way to get that done is with Game Time. All right, Game Time, fast, easy, safe, effective, affordable way to buy tickets. And if you're not even sure if you want to buy tickets till the week of that game, I wouldn't wait a lot longer till the week of that game, to be real, because I think those ticket prices are going to be all over the place. But if you want to get the best prices and buy tickets as late as possible, Game Time allows you to do that via their app. Also, make sure you never buy a ticket with a poor view from your seat. Game Time allows you to see the view from your seat before you buy. So if you hear nothing else and you want to be at the game for the best price and buy tickets the best way, listen to this, okay? Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code HARDCOUNT for $20 off your first purchase. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Again, create an account, redeem code HARDCOUNT, HARDCOUNT, for $20 off your first purchase. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest prices, guaranteed. So we appreciate Game Time getting us all to games here when it comes to the rest of the season. Cato, you had Michigan preseason as a college football playoff team. You saw it before the year began, and now you are on the precipice of that becoming a reality. What are your thoughts on Michigan here down the stretch, man?
First of all, I want to shout out the New York Knicks, the NBA champions this year. Tipping off today.
2026 champs.
Got to support the team.
Yeah, how about that?
This is our year, but this is also Michigan's year. I was just over here beaming with excitement, thinking about how when Sharon Moore put that blue-collar jacket on, that's what we're going to use as the signifier of when things changed for Michigan. I really wanted to see them win that game against Oklahoma for me to feel like, okay, this is a team, house money gambling. They are up in wins right now, and they're going to go on to make the playoff, only lose 2 games. Now that they've lost 2 games, the sense of urgency there, the schedule there, and Bryce Underwood's playing better and better and better. Best passer rating he's had this year was this game. Best completion percentage this game against Washington. I don't think they're going to play a better 3-headed monster offensive combination than what they had at Washington. They stepped up to the occasion there. I think they've really reached the turning point, and I think they're really about to hit their stride here. And with the opponents on their schedule, they will have room to continue to evolve. And we've talked so much about in the offseason when we want to see Bryce Underwood make this jump. I think a part of it, too, is Chip Lindsey also being able to make a jump and understand what Bryce brings to the table best, what he does best, and how to bring the most out of the weapons. And I think we saw that in the last game with the misdirection, like you were saying. 7 different guys catching the ball, which is a little rare when you talk about Michigan and some of their box scores. I think Bryce is looking – he just looked as comfortable as he's ever looked. This is a guy who completed 30% of his passes against the Oklahoma team, now goes out there 70% of his passes against Washington. I think Chip Lindsey is the secret ingredient, and as much as Bryce Underwood needed to grow, I think Chip also evolving and growing and learning kind of the fingerprint of this offense, being able to put whatever running back he needs to back there and getting the same production and also getting the most out of Bryce. I think this is the turning point, man. I think this team is just going to roll all the way into that Ohio State game where one of these two quarterbacks in that game is going to be an immediate Hall of Famer and have the highest approval rating in their respective state after that game.
It's going to be an awesome quarterback matchup, especially because they both have a chance now to kind of ramp up with what I would call these practice test games where, yeah, you're playing Northwestern. Yeah, if you're Ohio State, you don't have a bunch of like tough games ahead of you here down the stretch. But I think the whole thing with Chip Lindsey is interesting. It's a great point you make. I don't know that this Michigan offense, in the context of this year, has a bunch of higher gears to go to. Maybe they have one or two more where they unlock a little bit more with Donovan McCulley or maybe some other playmakers step up. Maybe that's the case, but I think he's figured out how to work this machine a lot better. Like, you got a couple of those, maybe your first car is this way where you got to maybe like jimmy the glove box a little bit there to get it open. Maybe you got to give it a little bit of extra juice when you turn it on to totally get the best output out of your engine. I'm not a big car guy, but I've driven my fair share of different cars over the course of my life, whether it's my own or a friend's. Everyone's a little bit different. That's the Michigan offense to me, Cato, and I think they figured out the quirks and the things that make it go the best. I love what I saw from them against Washington.
Definitely. I mean, you have Andrew Marsh, a true freshman, starting to come on. You have some freshman tight ends getting in the fold. They're starting to lean into the skill sets of their guys because before it just felt like, okay, like, Donovan McCulley's down there somewhere. Like, we'll just throw him the ball. Yeah. It's like, no, actually, one of our first drives, we're going to give him an end around and make you respect him in that area of the game as well. So I agree with you there, man. I think the more this team evolves offensively, comfort of Chip Lindsey calling the plays, feeling he has a bigger bag of tricks than the Michigan normally has, man, I couldn't feel better about my prediction as far as Michigan doing what I think they can do, reaching their ceiling, and hopefully making the college football playoff, man. I think the playoff's just better with them in it.
Dude, I cannot wait for it to be Michigan playing someone else in the national title game, and you're out there with Bryce Underwood at Media Days just cracking open a Celsius, and you guys are just getting caffeinated up at wherever the Media Days are for that game in Miami. But like, you're right there, Cato. I mean, you are, again, this stretch and play Ohio State with 9 wins, you're there, brother. Confidence level for that to be the case.
Looking forward to it, man.
What's the confidence level for Michigan in the playoff right now? Because you called your shot before the year. Where are we at confidence-wise, like 1 through 10, that this is the case?
I'll give it a 6.
I was going to say 6 or 7 is probably where I'm at right now,
probably
too.
Probably a 6.
Low-key.
And, like, 5 of those 6 points are Ohio State's defense looking amazing. And I couldn't imagine being a true freshman quarterback, no matter how evolved I get in my freshman year, stepping across the white lines, or between the white lines, rather, with that Ohio State defense. Like, they're probably going to give Bryce troubles, but they've given Ohio State troubles the last couple of years, so we'll see, man. But that's 1 point to stubbing their toe potentially and losing a game they shouldn't, and then 5 points to Ohio State is what's factoring into that 1 through 10 rating there. But we'll see.
I'm more of a 6 or 7. They get to that game,
yeah,
and they're in that spot to then go have a chance to punch their ticket. But we'll see, man. It'll be fun. So Michigan, very much so in control of their own destiny to be a playoff team. And as fate would have it, college football, modern college football, has tried to not water down this game, but modern college football with the expanded playoff and conference realignment and all the changes, we've sort of gone away from like the traditional bones of college football that have made it so special. And the Michigan-Ohio State rivalry finds a way to still have massive impact the last week of the regular season. I'm all the way here for it. Another bubble team here, another team that could be in the college football playoff. How about Tennessee? Now, Tennessee, 2 losses already, so they got to win out. But look who they have to play. At Kentucky, Oklahoma, who I also think has very much so real college football playoff aspirations. New Mexico State, last time I checked, Diego Pavia is at Vanderbilt and not still in New Mexico State. So there's that for you. Got to go to Florida, a place you haven't won since the early 2000s, and then you do actually still have to play Diego Pavia. So you play his former school and Vanderbilt. But here's my thing with Tennessee. Is it a tightrope that you have to walk to get to the playoff? Absolutely. No safety net. We've established that. But why this is an interesting discussion to me, Tennessee and those teams they have to play, I could see a world where Tennessee is just jumping on any of those teams, maybe all those teams, and I don't like any of them having to catch that Tennessee offense. Now, the Oklahoma defense is one thing, but like if John Mateer doesn't have a run game behind him, the way that he had against South Carolina, and that ends up being similar to what we saw early in the year. If Tennessee's up 14-0 on any of these teams, I don't like any of them chasing Tennessee. Top 10 in virtually every single category. offensively speaking, for Josh Heupel's unit out there. Like, they're scoring 39 a game right now. Who's catching Tennessee if they get up on them? And also the fact that you get Oklahoma at your place. You go to Florida, sure, but like Florida, do we know what they're going to be at that point in the season? Billy Napier has been fired. They're already looking for a new head coach. I don't know how much juice they're going to have emotionally when Tennessee rolls in there. If Tennessee has college football playoff aspirations still intact when they go to the Swamp. I get they haven't won there in a long time, but I'm just saying, Joey Aguilar, he wasn't a part of that. Josh Heupel has been a part of that in a very small sample size. I don't think he's half-stepping when they go and play that game. Vanderbilt, I think Vanderbilt's awesome. I've said many times I'm a fan of Vanderbilt being where they are right now in the world of college football. I think it's tremendous for the sport. It's great for us here in Nashville having game day coming to town, but if they get down 10-0, 14-0 against that offense, I don't think they're going to throw their way back into that game. So it's a tightrope for sure, but if you're 10-2 and you make the college football playoff after a year where you're not your starting quarterback, after spring practice, build the statue to Josh Heupel. Build it. And I think there's a lot of people now that are looking at the Arkansas game and looking at the Mississippi State game and saying, well, JD, how good is Tennessee really? I don't know. Ask Georgia. Should have beat Georgia, quite frankly. A field goal away. And the Alabama game got a little bit more out of hand, and I think it was kind of definitively Alabama's game that day. But there's a couple of plays that if you don't throw a pick six at the end of the first half, if you don't take a safety, like I'm just saying, there's a couple of universes now where Tennessee is playing Alabama a lot closer. And maybe they do beat Georgia, and that's their only loss. So there's a lot there for Tennessee to still, I think, have very real college football playoff hopes intact. And I say all that, and I don't mean to say that and then pat Tennessee on the head and say it wasn't about the playoff this year, but just remember where we were in the preseason. I think whenever you see a team have low expectations in the preseason and then perform well during the actual season, there's a tendency for us all to just forget what we said in the preseason and say, no, now they have to make the playoff. Otherwise, it's a down year. It's a bad year for the Vols. In what world? Do we not remember what happened where we talked about Tennessee, hey, good for Tennessee taking a stance. And if they win 8 games this year, at least they took a stand for something. At least they didn't bend the knee to the requirements or the demands of the Iamaleava camp. Good for them. We were saying that preseason. They're in position now to go make the college football playoff, or at least have a chance to do that with them being in this discussion of being on the bubble. So if they don't do it, I don't think anything less of Josh Heupel. I don't think anything less of Tennessee. I think what he did with Joey Aguilar this year is proof in the pudding that Josh Heupel, more years than not, will have Tennessee offensively in a spot to take an at-bat for the SEC championship and also the college football playoff with that thing continuing to expand. So Tennessee, bubble team for sure. There's a path there where they outscore everybody and they find themselves in the dance. But even if they don't, I don't think anything less of what the Vols have done to this point in the season. Couple of teams to talk about here. Last two I want to unpack together before we move on throughout the rest of this episode. Nebraska still in the bubble. JD, they just got beat by Minnesota pretty bad. No, I know. I understand. Wasn't great. But here's my thing. If they beat USC, I think it's back on for Nebraska. I'm not saying that you're booking playoff tickets, but look at their schedule. No Oregon, no Ohio State. And if they do beat a USC team, how much better do you feel about the game at UCLA? How much better do you feel about the game against Penn State? That game doesn't look that daunting anymore like it did in the preseason. Iowa's a rivalry game, but like Iowa, I don't think they're going to light up the scoreboard necessarily. So Dylan Raiola, you came to Nebraska for a reason, right? If you're staring down a college football playoff spot in that final week of the regular season, you don't think Matt Rhule is going to pull everything out of that football team to then go get across the finish line? I think Nebraska, if they can beat USC now, major caveat, I know they have 2 losses, but what that would say about them from a capability standpoint could not be ignored for my money. So they're not out of it for sure, but that USC game has massive implications. In the same way, Illinois is kind of in that discussion for me too. Only 2 losses. Now, we've been pretty vocal. We were not buying the Illinois stock in the preseason. Said too many close losses from last year. I don't know that I love the way that this whole close wins translates to more wins the next year. It's flying a little bit close to the sun for me. But they're sitting there with 2 losses right now. They go to Washington this weekend. If you beat Washington at Washington, kind of the same thought I had about Nebraska beating USC, I think stands for the Illini. Because that's a tough place to play. It's a tough offense to shut down. I don't think we shut them down, but if you can outscore them, Rutgers, Maryland, at Wisconsin, Northwestern. You can beat Washington at their place. You're not losing any of those teams. 10-2 Illinois in the Big Ten. Say what you want about the schedule. They're in the college football playoff. So that whole run, I think, is very much so predicated on beating Washington, obviously, in Seattle, which is a big ask. But I don't think it's impossible. And again, we were not buying Illinois stock before the year, but if you beat Washington, I might try to invest a little bit there and get my money's worth for what's going on out there in Champaign. So a lot of bubble teams there for us to talk about. And let me know your thoughts. Who else is on the bubble when it comes to the college football playoff discussion? Something we'll unpack a lot more as we move into the month of November, as we get these playoff rankings and more data to work with, or data, however you want to pronounce that. We'll keep talking about things in that vein. So get at us on the socials, Instagram, Twitter, at JD PicKell. Let me know your thoughts. Appreciate y'all that have followed, too, in the last couple of days. Seen a lot of growth on both those social channels, so thanks for that. So here's a team that's also relatively on the bubble this season. That's Texas. But I don't want to talk so much about their bubble situation or their college football playoff aspirations. Steve Sarkisian was asked a question at his press conference this week about play calling and how he would approach that, and essentially if he would give up play calling. And his response to that was awesome. He basically just says, no, not giving up play calling. I was hired to be the head coach at Texas because I was an awesome play caller, because I was a great offensive coordinator. So no, I'm not going to give up the thing that made me the ultimate head coach at Texas when it comes to how this whole thing is shaking out. And I was really curious to see how the Texas fan base would respond to that thought. My gut reaction was, I think Texas fans understand that for the most part, Texas has been pretty good offensively. I think they understand that's why they hired Steve Sarkisian. I don't think Texas fans are going to be clamoring for Sark to give up the play calling. And I was kind of surprised by the room being pretty split there. You see some folks saying, yeah, let's not overreact. Saw a lot of folks, though, saying he's got too much on his plate. Sark, maybe you got to delegate a little bit here, brother. Maybe you got to be more of a CEO. Maybe it would be good for Sark to give up play calling. And I'm a little bit baffled by that. I get it, the offense hasn't been great. I understand that. But you have a standard in Austin right now of playing borderline elite offensive football since Steve Sarkisian's got there, right? That's why you feel this way. Well, who created that standard? Who made you think that you deserve to have great offensive football for Texas? Steve Sarkisian. Why? Because he's been calling the plays. Because he's been designing the offense and recruiting the personnel and all those things to make you be in a spot now where he can call the plays and be successful. Steve Sarkisian has had a top 25 offense in every single year when it comes to scoring since getting to Texas. Like this year, it hasn't been that. But Steve Sarkisian being the common denominator, still being in place for all those offenses, and then you have a new quarterback and a brand new offensive line, is it more on the play caller? Or is it maybe a little bit more reasonable to assume, hey, the new personnel might be the reason why the production offensively has dropped off a little bit, and not the guy that everybody that's college football or football royalty seems to trust when it comes to offensive football? Like the Mannings, they're not wasting their time sending Arch to play somewhere where he's not going to get developed or have good plays called for him. Make no mistake, Arch is at Texas because of development and because of Sark. And those two things kind of go hand in hand in general. If the Mannings trust Steve Sarkisian, I think we'd all be okay to trust Steve Sarkisian too. The NFL, the best in the world. People that get paid millions upon millions. There's 32 of them in existence. Steve Sarkisian was one of those 32 play callers at one point in time. The NFL's not wasting their time. Nick Saban, the best head coach ever, says, I want Steve Sarkisian to call my plays for me. And just because we've had a little bit of a slow start here for Texas, or a slow year in general, relative to previous years, we're saying he shouldn't call the plays? That to me is wild. Absolutely wild. And a big thought behind this idea that he shouldn't call plays anymore is the idea that he's got too much on his plate. And I'm like, well, if he's got too much on his plate, he's eating greedy right now. Saying, well, he should just focus on recruiting and maybe not play. He's recruiting at an elite level right now. They had the number one class last cycle. If things were falling off his plate, wouldn't we have seen that by now? Like, yes, the offense has dropped off a little bit, but it's not so much a Sark thing. Again, it's a personnel thing. You've recruited in the top 10 every year since 2022. Recruiting's not taking a hit. NIL, you want to outsource that? Sure. If you want to have more people manage personnel, sure. But Sark is doing a phenomenal job when it comes to recruiting. I think actually play calling is the last thing I would take away from Sark. Outsource other stuff. He's a phenomenal play caller. That makes zero sense to me. So why is Texas having issues if it's not play calling, JD? I don't love running a reverse flea flicker on 3rd and 3, whatever. Okay, I hear you. It is what it is. It's an aggressive play call. I don't think anyone calls a perfect game ever in the history of college football. But you can't run the ball. You're 66 in yards per carry, and you can't protect Arch. You're number 77 when it comes to sacks allowed at a rate. And you have a first-year starting quarterback that, unfortunately for Texas fans, is playing like a first-year starting quarterback. Now, he's had time to sit, and you're saying, what was he doing all those years? I don't know. But I don't think that's a Sark thing so much as it is a personnel thing. So I get the idea that the offense hasn't done enough lately, but if we're putting this on Sark as a play caller, that to me is a little bit rich for my blood. He's called plays at the highest level. A lot of people trust him to call plays at the highest level. He's done a great job calling plays until this year. Is it on Sark that the offense is dropping off, or is it maybe the fact you have a bunch of new personnel and it's not being executed at the high enough level just yet? I don't know. Feels pretty cut and dry to me. So Steve Sarkisian said that at a press conference, and that did not need to be translated. He was very black and white about how he felt and his reasoning behind him being a play caller at Texas here going forward as the head coach. But there's times across the college football world where head coaches aren't being dishonest, but maybe they could be a little bit more brutally honest with us as college football fans. And so during the offseason, we did a segment called Coach Translator, where we did what we're about to do now. Listen to a head coach and what they have to say at a press conference, and we're taking what they're saying, but maybe even reading between the lines a little bit more to what they're really saying. So I want to go through a couple head coaches here. Let's start with Mike Elko at Texas A&M. A buddy of mine, actually, that works in College Station, Alex Miller, asked him two really good questions. The first of which being, hey, how do you go win in Tiger Stadium? Is essentially what he asked. Here's Mike Elko's response, and we'll translate it after.
I think for a large period of time, we weren't, we didn't go down there physically and stand up to the challenge. I think when you saw some of the early games, I think that was kind of always the okay, this is what the SEC looks like. I think as our program grew, we started to get closer and closer. Obviously, my first experience was going down there and playing the 2019 team. That wasn't a lot of fun, but that was historically one of the best teams in college football. I think when we went down there in 21, it was obviously a much more competitive game from a physical standpoint, and I think that's the gap that we've tried to close as a program. And so, obviously, the series has been very balanced since I've been here in 2018. Someone's going to crack through at some point on the road, and, Saturday's an opportunity for us to be the team that does it.
Translation, we used to be kind of soft. And maybe it was a personnel thing. Maybe when we got to the SEC as Texas A&M, we didn't have the dudes to match up with those teams that have been in the SEC for longer. But we used to not be up for the challenge physically, the way that he said that. I don't think we had the gumption or maybe it's a confidence thing, but however you want to slice it, physically and over time mentally, we were a little bit soft. So we couldn't go into a place like Tiger Stadium and go meet the challenge that was going to be physically. But guess what? That's why you hired me, is what Mike Elko is saying there. That's why I'm here. Because what A&M was previously and what they are now, to me, feels pretty night and day from a personality standpoint. And I think the personnel is something to be accounted for in the way he's went to the portal and the way they've developed their players is for sure part of this. But Mike Elko, when you got him at Texas A&M, the feeling that you had as a Texas A&M fan should have been, this dude's tough. Defensive coordinator background, did more with less at Duke, has a solid track record when it comes to his football teams as a head coach, defensively being a good spot. We're going to be physically at a different place because of how we operate culturally and mentally. And that's the truth about A&M right now. And so what Mike Elko is saying, yeah, we used to not be like that, but guess what? We are now because I'm the head coach. And the way that we do things now and the way we've adjusted since then is right in line with what I'm about and what we're going to be about here when we go on the road, we play in Baton Rouge, and we go handle our business physically because of how we operate upstairs. This is a great question by my guy, Alex Miller. The next question, though, that he asked got a little bit more of a emotional response from one Mike Elko. Fair question, got to ask it, but he asked him, hey, listen, Penn State's open right now, and your name is being thrown onto hot boards, whether you like it or not. How do you manage that? Take a listen.
There's multiple national reports out that you're a possible candidate for the Penn State job. I'm just curious, Your thoughts on that, how you handle your name being linked to that kind of job, and if that's something you even discuss with your players?
I don't discuss it with my players. I think it's absolutely hilarious how you guys cover coaches. I think 3 weeks ago I was getting fired. Now I'm getting hired. Now you don't want me to stay, but I'm leaving. Like, it's absolutely hilarious. It is a waste of brain space to spend any time talking or thinking about any of that stupidity.
Waste of brain space. Translation there from Mike Elko. Stop talking about this. Like, lower your voice. We don't need any distractions. We're in the mix of the college football playoff race right now. We haven't lost a game. And why has A&M, historically speaking, underachieved? A lot of reasons you could point to. One of the biggest, though, that I think Mike Elko got a little bit emotional about, lack of focus. Lack of being dialed into the task at hand. People want to talk about, postseason stuff and what they could accomplish and what could happen for their team. And Mike Elko being offered other jobs, he's like, stop. One, I think he's legit in the sense that he's not going to take the Penn State job. That's the first part of this. The second part of this is what I just said. It's a waste of brain space in the sense that brain space should be all the way dialed in to LSU. Then everything they have to do down the stretch to go be a college football playoff team. So I think you saw him be emotional because he is trying to, as best he can, fly swat that idea that is anything less than what they have in front of them and going and accomplishing their goals of winning the SEC and being a college football playoff team. And then beyond that, you'd have to think winning a national championship is on the to-do list for a one Mike Elko. So yeah, he got a little bit emotional, he got a little fired up, but I think he got fired up not because of the question and his name being linked to Penn State. Maybe that's a part of it. But even more so, I think it's the fact that, hey, we have so much in front of us right now, don't even let this be a headline. And then the fact that he got emotional about it made it a bit of a headline nationally. So how that whole thing goes. So great stuff there from our guy Alex Miller. Great stuff from Mike Elko. That is Mike Elko translated what he was really saying during that press conference in College Station. Not being dishonest, but that's what he was maybe being a little bit more, what he could have been more brutally honest about. And that's what we're here for, Coach. So no need to thank us. We're happy to do that work for you. Hugh Freeze was asked a number of questions at his press conference going into this game against Arkansas this weekend. It's pretty straightforward why he was asked about the quarterback stuff. And he said during his press conference already, like, hey, listen, we're going to get Ashton Daniels some reps with Jackson Arnold this week at practice. But another reporter circled back during that press conference and said, hey, weren't you having other plans for Ashton Daniels this year? And go ahead and listen to Coach Freeze's answer. I think it's kind of revealing.
Our intention was to have Ashton redshirt this year. If you want to make a change of quarterback, doesn't that kind of limit your use of go to do?
Not anymore. We just we're going to play to win with him, and he's prepared to play the last few, and then if you go watch the game and you're watching it live, it's really hard to complain about Jackson in the first half of the last two games for sure. I mean he that game could have easily been 14-0 after the second drive, and Jackson was playing at a high level, and we've got to get that consistency throughout the game, or we've got to go find a spark.
Translation. It's not about next year. It's about right now. Like, if I'm Hugh Freeze, yes, I told y'all, I would love to redshirt Ashton Daniels if I could. But the reality is we're not good enough right now offensively for me to limit our options at quarterback. And we hope it's Jackson Arnold. That'd be great. And y'all, I told y'all, if I'm translating here Hugh Freeze correctly, I told y'all we've been thinking about doing this for a minute here, since A&M. But what do you want me to bench the kid for? We're up 10-3 at half against Georgia. It really should have been 17-0 if you're an Auburn fan. You're up 7-3 against Missouri in the first quarter. Jackson Arnold's not throwing the game away for you in the first half. Like, listen, my hands are a little bit tied here from Hugh Freeze. What do you want me to do? The guys played well enough in the first half to where I don't have a move to be made. But at the same time, I understand if I'm Hugh Freeze, this is not the standard. And we're not talking about next year or the year after that. We're not in the building phase anymore. We're in the winning phase. And so would it be cool to redshirt Ashton Daniels and save him for next year? Yeah, we don't have time for that. I do not have time as Hugh Freeze to not play whoever at quarterback gives us the best chance to win. So the way he said that too at the end, where he says we got to go find a spark if we don't have what we need from Jackson Arnold, I think he's saying, no, Jackson's still probably going to start for us, barring something in practice looking different for us internally at Auburn, but it's going to be a short leash here. And I will not hesitate to throw Ashton Daniels in the game. I also think, quite frankly, what Hugh Freeze is saying there is there will be ample opportunity in the game plan for Ashton Daniels to be involved, is my read on that thing. It's not a next year thing. It's a this year thing. We cannot be stubborn about how we're going about this thing. So it is what it is, man. We don't have time to waste. And I would have played him if we had a reason to, but Jackson Arnold hadn't given us a reason to not play him. But we're sitting here. We got to win out to win 8 games. We got to do that. Doesn't matter who's playing quarterback is the translation there for Hugh Freeze. Now, he was also asked about getting a vote of confidence from A.D. John Cohen at Auburn. And this was coming in the wake of Florida State coming out and saying, hey, we're behind Mike Norvell to the end of the season. We will go back and kind of reassess things internally. And so it's a fair question to be asked. And I think Hugh Freeze also gave a very fair answer. Take a listen.
Well, that would be huge. That'd make everyone feel a lot better for sure. I haven't talked to John. I'm gonna say John has been so supportive ever since obviously my hire, and but I don't get too much into they have a job to do, and certainly he has people he has to answer to, and I know how close we are. I know I can get this fixed, and we're too dang close. And we've got to get a little bit better play and a little bit better coaching at a few spots. And I want a chance to fix this. And, obviously, I've totally gotten off of all social media, so I'm not sure what exactly was said in those other cases, but that's got to be reassuring to those people in there that they believe that they can get it fixed.
Translation, yeah, it'd be nice. Be one less thing to worry about around here. Like he's just answering an honest question with an honest answer. Yeah, I'd love to have my AD say we're behind you, brother. But at the same time, I understand we haven't done enough to warrant that at this point in time. Like we haven't put that product on the field at this point in time. We're 0-4 in the SEC. That's not good enough. It's not good enough. But would I like to have my AD say, yeah, we're behind Hugh Freeze? Of course. You know why? Because it would dial down anxiety in our building. It would eliminate that conversation around Auburn football. Because right now everyone's saying what? Hey, is Hugh Freeze going to be there next year? Hey, is Hugh Freeze, how hot is his seat? Hey, what happens? Who could Auburn go after? I was on the On3 Auburn message board after that game against Missouri, and there's posters saying, hey, I'd love to go with Kenny Dillingham. Hey, here's my top 5 for the next Auburn head coach. More noise does not usually equate to a better vibe internally, especially more negative noise around your head coach. So would it be nice to have your AD give you a vote of confidence? Absolutely, because it'd be one less thing for me to worry about. And my job as the head coach of Auburn football is already hard enough. It's already hard enough to win in the SEC. It's hard enough with the job that I inherited from one Brian Harsin and what I've done to push this thing up a freaking hill to be in a spot to win right now, and we're not doing it. Yeah, it'd be nice if I had my boss say, no, we're not firing you, Hugh Freeze. But he also made sure he added this caveat, we're close, and I'm confident I can still get this done. So yeah, I'd like to have someone tell me my job's not in jeopardy, but you know what, just for good measure, I feel like I'm going to be able to, in general, save my own job with what we do on the field. Because he kept saying, we're so close, we're so close. If you're an Auburn fan, you roll your eyes and say, yeah, I know, we're so close, Hugh, but close isn't good enough. And he understands that. He said that at different press conferences. But I think him saying that we're close and his confidence in them being close and their ability to then get past the threshold, it's just words right now, but good stuff from your head coach, regardless. So that's Coach Hugh Freeze translated. Again, not being dishonest, but just a little more brutally honest on our side than a coach is able to be at a podium during a press conference during the week. We'll stay in the state of Alabama. What did Coach Kalen DeBoer really say at his press conference in Tuscaloosa? He was asked going into this game against South Carolina, hey, how do you make sure the guys stay locked in? His answer, I thought, was a great one. Check this out.
How do you keep guys locked in this week?
Just, I think you always draw on the experiences and, the moment we're in right now, there is momentum. There's things that we're doing well. There's things that I know our guys have as far as goals individually as a team that we haven't even come close to reaching yet. And so taking those experiences from the past, good and bad, that we've been through, understanding that it comes down to our preparation and just locking in what we control. And that's what's got us to this point where every game means so much. And we gotta tomorrow morning come with the edge that we have had, and I expect that from our guys.
Translation, we didn't forget Florida State. We didn't forget how that felt leaving Doak Campbell and everyone talking about how bad Bama is and I'm the wrong guy for the job and questioning our football team and what we're doing all offseason and Thomas Castellanos disrespecting us, we draw on our experiences. The experience I'm drawing on to keep my team locked in is getting embarrassed the first week of the college football season. And we said it after that game. This could be a gift for Alabama. And it's sort of tongue-in-cheek. It's sort of copium at that point in time after you just get beat by a team that you should not have got beaten by, and that's been confirmed here from what Florida State has done the rest of the season. But guess what? Sort of a gift of we know we can lose to anybody if we don't bring our best. If we don't prepare the right way, if we don't stay locked in the right way during the week, we don't do the inputs that require the right output, we could get beat. So, yeah, the experiences of beating Georgia, I'm sure, are huge, and they're a propeller of sorts. The Missouri win, I'm sure it's huge as well. But the fact that we lost a game already this year because we weren't properly emotionally dialed and properly physically dialed during the week, that's why we stay locked in. So that's why we're on edge. That's why we're locked in. That's why we're not taking anything for granted. I love the answer from Kalen DeBoer because I think that speaks volumes to the edge this team has. An edgy football team in college football, I think, is a good thing at all times. So that was a great answer from him, and I appreciate him allowing us to translate that for him. That was the brutally honest version of what Kalen DeBoer was saying. We did not forget Florida State. Now, he was also asked about the emotional component for him this week and, kind of what keeps them going, essentially, is what the question was. And he made a really interesting remark on what Alabama still has the ability to accomplish relative to their own expectations. Go ahead and check this out.
The preparation, again, just the investment of time and the investment of your energy throughout the week, leading to a confidence and an excitement to go out there and make plays and to be our best. I still challenge the guys, and they believe it, that the world hasn't seen Bama's best yet. And, that's really what we're striving to do. And when you keep it just really as simple as possible on that, have great preparation, and everyone caring about what we're trying to accomplish, you have that edge. And so we got to stack another week of work, one day at a time, and be ready to go on Saturday.
Translation, we're still getting better. I mean, we have 4 ranked wins, 2 of those on the road. Our best football hasn't been played yet. And it's one thing for a coach to say this and have it be coach speak. This is my own assessment. I believe him. I really do. I watched the Vanderbilt first quarter, and I was like, yeah, Vandy looks like the more violent football team. That first quarter against Missouri, I'm like, I don't know. Missouri threw a punch there. I don't know if Alabama's all the way dialed in for this one. There's still more meat on the bone for Alabama. Like Alabama overall, for them to still be getting better, you know how crazy that is? For what they've already accomplished? The win over Tennessee looking the way that it did, the first half against Georgia looking the way that it did, and they didn't even score in the second half, which is more proof in the pudding of what Kalen DeBoer is saying is not just coach speak. Hey, we got a few more gears in this vehicle here. We can be even better. And I think that's worth noting in an extra sense if you're an Alabama fan, because think about what your team was last year. You peaked in the Georgia game. Straight up. Like your best football was played in that Georgia game, and you did not get better from there. For you to have already beaten Georgia again this year and to have your head coach saying we haven't even played our best football yet, that is terrifying. Because the best teams in college football, the best coaches in college football, they peak at the right time. How many times did we see Nick Saban's teams look, good in the month of September, better in October, and then November and December, they're a freaking runaway train. Same thing with Kirby Smart. We say it every year. Fine in September. We talk about him a little bit. October, okay, a couple of good wins. November, though, I don't want to play Georgia. Last year, we were talking about how Georgia looked uncharacteristic throughout the entirety of the year. And then wouldn't you know it, they show up in the SEC championship game, they beat Texas, and they win the SEC in a year where they had a lot of numbers that would suggest they should have been 8-4. Bama, I don't have numbers that suggest they should be 8-4, but I think for them to be following that similar trend of we haven't even played our best yet, and we know we haven't played our best yet, and that keeps us going, that's scary Bama. That's scary Kalen DeBoer. And a big part of this, going back to that first quote he had, the loss to Florida State, I think, was the propeller for all of this, the urgency for all of this, the edge for all of this, that forced Bama to kind of have a heel turn of sorts and embrace that black hoodie energy, the bad guy energy from Kalen DeBoer. I love that. I love it for this team. And that, I think, is what Kalen DeBoer is saying here. Kind of mild-mannered in his South Dakota way about himself, from the Pacific Northwest, most recently from Washington. He's saying, no. We haven't forgotten Florida State, and our best ball hasn't been played. We're coming for all of y'all. All of y'all. That's from Kalen DeBoer. As I'm translating Kalen DeBoer, it's his messaging, my words. So there you have it. But let us know if you have any coaches you want us to translate on this show. I think we might do more of that depending on how y'all respond to this kind of content. But it's always a good time whenever you can translate what a coach is truly saying, because coach speak runs rampant, especially this time of year. But we're happy to sift through the tea leaves, or sift through the coach speak, and give you what we think they're really trying to say at their weekly press conferences. But we appreciate y'all making the show what it is. If you haven't yet subscribed on the podcast feed, even if you don't listen via podcast, go ahead and subscribe there. Doesn't cost anything. Totally free. It boosts those numbers and gets the show to more people. So don't even do it for yourself. Do it for the person that hasn't heard the show yet, that you want to have them dialed into college football year round. All right, we're a we over me operation on this side. So we appreciate y'all following suit there. So for Cato on the ones, the twos, and the Mike and the Michigan playoff prediction, looking like it's still very much so intact and looking like it could be a thing that comes to fruition. All right, we appreciate y'all. We love y'all. We will keep this party rolling. We will see y'all.